pay. I may have been early, but I'm not wrong.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Hey, we're recording the podcast. Shut up.
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is Morning Summer for May 14th, 2024. My name is Bertie Burns, sitting right over there. Bye. That's what she's saying. Buy everything you can. Ashley Burns, how you doing, Ash?
Buy high, sell low.
Oh, look at you. You got the Wall Street Bets mantra going there.
Oh, we're making jokes, of course, because the meme stocks are at it again.
75% in a day.
Yeah, GameStop stock went up 75% in a day. And I think AMC almost doubled.
They were both about 75%. They're both in that range.
It's a lot anyway. So
we were just talking about AMC yesterday, speculating on it.
We were, and then something completely different happened, and that is that Roaring Kitty, also known as Deep Fucking Value, he's the subject of what's that GameStop movie?
Dumb Money.
Yeah. He was the subject of that, right? Basically, he was the guy who made the whole GameStop stock run happen. Previously, he's been retired from Twitter for 2 years, and then just posted this, not even a specific thing, it was a meme of, it's like a sketch of a gamer sitting forward on the seat, and you know the implication is things get serious, right? You sit forward in the seat and now you're taking it seriously.
You're laying back, you're just fucking around. When you lean forward, this is
shit's
serious
getting real.
business. Yeah.
Exactly. Take it serious. And on the back of that meme posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, the stocks went crazy. So GameStop went up 75%, AMC went up 75%. And you told me that they are poised to potentially go up even more today.
Yeah, so we record this podcast early, but CNBC is reporting GameStop and AMC have jumped another 40% in pre-market. We should say right off the bat, or at least I feel like I should say, I don't know a lot about the meme stocks. I don't have any understanding of what drives those prices up and down. From my amateur opinion, it looks like complete and total speculation, and great, go have fun. One of the things that's always kind of surprised me about the GameStop stock in particular is that it seems like being driven by a subreddit, by the Wall Street Bets apes, those are the people, I think, because of the nerdy tech, and Reddit has a lot of crossover with gaming. Those are the people who, out of everyone in the business world, would understand the fundamentals of GameStop as a company better than just about anybody else. And if you ask them, hey, what's a company you don't see existing in another 5 or 10 years? I bet GameStop would be near the top of their list.
Yeah, probably.
And yet they all invest so heavily in GameStop to mainly fight the short sellers and the hedge funds.
Right. As I understand it, when this cropped up before, it wasn't necessarily about GameStop itself, although, of course, their justification was, I just like the stock. But it was a lot of the...
Do you know what that comes from, though?
Well, that's I'm not manipulating.
I'm not manipulating.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just, it's just a good stock. But at the time, I think a lot of the hedge funds were shorting GameStop. And so these, what they call them, retail traders were basically going to war against the institution. And so they went into war flying GameStop as a banner, basically.
Yeah.
So because I don't get shorting. I think shorting is when you are betting that a value is going to go down.
That is
right?
correct. That is correct.
And
and the wild thing about it is, if you take $100 and you buy $100 worth of GameStop stock, you essentially bet $100 and GameStop goes out of business. How much do you lose?
$100.
If you short GameStop and say they're going to go down, but GameStop starts to go up, you don't hit a zero ever, right? There's no stop of it going up, and it could just go up and up and up. And up. So it's basically you said, hey, those losses that you can have by investing in the stock market? What if we just uncap those and just made those?
What if it was limitless?
I could bet 100 and somehow risk 100,000. I mean, theoretically, So they could put these hedge funds who were shorting GameStop, they could put them in a really volatile position and create a really unique position called a short squeeze, where they had to liquidate their positions, which could really destroy those hedge funds if that had to happen. It's actually what we played at the beginning here, the drop, where Michael Burry, when he was betting against the real estate market in 2008, he was in a position where the premiums he was paying on his shorts could destroy his entire fund. But then it ended up paying off. But if he'd been too early, he would have been wrong. You can be right about something, and if your timing is wrong, you're still wrong. if that makes sense.
Sure, it does. It does make sense.
Okay.
But it is very interesting to see. I'm curious to see why, if there's any particular driving reason for this particular run on the meme stocks, or if it's just for fun, or if it's just because they're really excited about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes after all.
Which we talked about yesterday with AMC. There's other meme stocks in there as well. Like BlackBerry's been in there a few times.
Is BlackBerry still around?
Yeah, BlackBerry's still around. Yeah. And once again, it's like this stock that no one considers, which is why it becomes interesting to people. Like Deep Fucking Value was talking about the undervalued stock. That's how it all started. That he saw a lot of value in what GameStop could do on the upside. Not, I don't think that it would go roaring and become one of the greatest success stories of the year that it had that huge run. And then today where it goes up 75% in a day, to the point where they halted trading on it a few different times. Yeah,
they halted trading multiple times for volatility, which I didn't know happened on upswings, but maybe there were also micro sell-offs as it hit certain points. If you like zoom out as well and look at sort of the history.
Look at you, zoom out. Go
zooming
ahead.
out. Well, I'm just looking at, basically, I just went to Google and was like, what GameStop stock? And it'll show you the graph. And if you go and look at the month instead and you see this just incredible spike in one day, you go, oh my, you can see why it's considered very volatile.
And I do want to say, we talked about AMC yesterday and the apes and Wall Street Bets and all that stuff. We talked about it with the
You saw it coming.
movie of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We were talking about it. So yesterday, clearly that was financial advice. Today, this is not financial advice.
Today, not financial advice.
We can only call it financial advice after we're right about something.
Just like the stock. Just like the stock.
Classic way.
But I always have trouble making sense of it, but I think I can probably get a little bit of help. Hey, ChatGPT. Can you explain this shit to me?
Dude, I was going to say the same thing. When I invest in things, I look at things that are going to change for the future, like where we're going in like big trends. That's what I try to look at. And I look at stuff like what's going on with AI. I've talked about robotics before as being, I think, a new huge consumer electronics category. But yeah, that presentation that we were talking about beforehand yesterday took place at 10 a.m. Pacific time. 8 p.m. Scotland time.
I think I'm trying to do the translation. I think it might have been 6 p.m. for us.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because it's 2 hours.
Because it was Pacific.
I was adding the 2 hours twice. It was 6 p.m. our time. Because I do remember us being around the dinner table, like looking at OpenAI.
Watching it like total losers.
Yeah. So it was 8 hours off from us. But it was rumored to be that they were going to reveal a her-style assistant. By her, we mean the movie by Spike Jonze, starring Joaquin Phoenix, where he somehow, against all odds, Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with Scarlett Johansson.
Who could see that coming?
An audio version of her. And that's what they showed. And as there always is with any kind of tech presentation, there's always people who saw a flub or an error and went, no, sucks. I thought it was incredible.
It blew me away, not just for what it can do, but when you see how far it's come and how quickly it's come that far. When you start to draw the line out to the future and go, okay, holy shit,
right,
what's
when
next?
You start to extrapolate like what's next or what this could add to my life, that's when it gets really wild.
Yeah, so there's this
range of emotions, right?
Huge range of emotions. There's a lot of excitement because it can do these really cool things. There's a lot of trepidation, like, oh God, this could be quite dangerous. If people abuse it, which they absolutely will.
And that's why we need people thinking about that and thinking around those corners and putting protections in place, because there's always going to be people who abuse this stuff. Always.
But what they showed was really very impressive. Honestly, it's like Siri took a bunch of steroids in a lot of ways. They have what they're calling it is, they haven't given it a fancy name yet, but it's ChatGPT 4.0. The O apparently stands for Omni, because it takes in data not only via text but also via voice. And then it also had a demo where ChatGPT via a phone camera read math data and helped someone essentially with math homework.
So this was the visual.
All teachers going, oh, for God's sake.
I would imagine most teachers these days are like, bring it on. Just give me my pension. If you want to replace me, feel free. Total tangent here. But this is, if you ever want to get depressed, go on the subreddit for teachers. It's r/teachers. Oh, man, it is. I started reading that stuff when we were talking about the Baltimore schools. Man, it is really depressing to read about a modern day teacher and what they deal with the students and the parents and the administration. It's just, yeah.
I-
Only if you want to get depressed. Save that for a Wednesday or a Monday. If you're already down in the dumps, go read that stuff. But so the three interfaces with text and audio and visual. The visual was probably the most revolutionary, where he was writing a math problem like it was homework, like 3x minus 2 equals 7 or something like that.
It was fairly
Very
simple
easy,
algebra,
yeah.
but it was interesting because she, I say she because it was using a feminine voice.
Did you see the
using-
stuff where she was changing her voice too? They were asking her to change.
I
think
did
that
not
was
see that
before
part.
you started watching. She was telling a story and they said, "Hey, this sounds a little robotic. Can you make it more emotional?" She goes, "Absolutely. I will become more dramatic as I read this." And she was like on the fly. Then they were like, "Can you just read this to me like it's information?" And then she sounded like a newscaster. And then she sounded like a robot. And it was the same voice, but different intonation. It was pretty impressive to watch all that on the fly.
Yeah, and then with the math thing, it was able to basically look at the paper, interpret the numbers that were written down, turn that into the equation, and understand the equation. And then the guy said specifically, "Don't give me the answer.
Right.
Help me with the steps to solve it." And it said, "Okay, well, of course, the first step with this will be to get what the variables on one side and the constants on the other side.
Yeah.
How would you do that?" And basically walk him through the process of solving the equation. And that I thought was far more interesting almost than just having the answer, because it was able to not just know the steps, but to put them into words. I guess.
It was funny because I had a very, very self-reflexive moment at that point in time, because here you and I were at the dinner table with the two kids. JD was there as well, but the two younger kids, we were watching this presentation because just of the timing we had to, and we're eating, and it's like showing the computer helping the kids with the math program. And I'm thinking, who would neglect their kids like that? I'm shoveling food in my face and watching a phone screen.
Yeah, but and there were some other interesting things like live language translation that seemed really brilliant and nuanced.
Right, very nuanced, right? So even the audio part of it, it might sound like what you're used to, of like, oh, hey, assistant, look this location up for me. And then there's the pause of transmission, and then the translation,
Processing.
and then the process of giving you an answer, and then the transmission back to you, and then it says something. They probably were able to crib that transmission part of it by being in the room with her. But it was like she would come in right on the coattails of their questions and things like that. It felt nearly seamless to me. Not quite seamless, but nearly seamless.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of suspension of disbelief involved in interacting with tools like this. Like, you have to be willing to suspend the disbelief that it's not human, right?
Yeah.
And the latency, I think, is a big part of that you can pretend that you're having this very real-time conversation. And the lower the latency, the easier that is to do. And whatever they did with the demo worked great. It seemed like they had that.
I saw a conversation about where someone said, "I won't believe this until it stores, all of my information in it, and it remembers all of our previous conversations, so I can just talk to it like a person and just pick up conversations on the fly."
Oh, please, that's not human. You think humans remember everything about you?
Also,
absolutely not.
Can you imagine the tech companies salivating over customers asking for that? Oh, you want us to store all of your data? Sure.
Oh, no, don't ask us to do that.
Giant consent button you hit one time. But the translation thing you were talking about, they had someone speaking Italian, someone speaking English, and it was incredible to watch it. We had seen this stuff for years. You always love the story about Gus and the cartoon duck.
Yeah, he went to Japan, right? And he had a cartoon duck on his phone or something, and he would ask people to speak to the duck, and they would speak to the duck, and it would translate for him, right?
It was on his PSP.
Oh,
his
throwback.
His PlayStation Portable.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Japanese people were like, "Okay, I'll talk to the cartoon duck." Sure. Here, they would talk to the duck, and the duck would translate for Gus. I always think it would be funny if a Japanese tourist showed up in the Bronx with that and was like, "Will you talk to my duck?" Like, get the fuck out of here. What's the matter with you? Just different cultures. But this was it was wild because it was translating so quickly, and it wasn't like immediately saying what they were saying word for word. It was like having someone translating. She would say something in Italian, and then ChatGPT would say, "Oh, here's what she's trying to say. She wants to know where she can find this." Where it was contextually having a conversation, like conveying the information without necessarily translating exactly what she was saying.
Right, like it wasn't a one-to-one translation. It was the addition of this is what they mean or this is what they want.
This whole presentation, Ashley, to me was the narrowing of that uncanny valley. Narrowing of it more and more and more and more. Because little side note here. One of my favorite translation stories of all time is two stories about George Bush Sr. They're both related to Japan. George Bush Sr., when he was president, he went over to Japan and he had an incident that would be like, the media would never let it go today. At one point, he passed out and threw up on the Japanese prime minister.
Rough night, Mr. President?
Can you imagine if Biden did that? Like, I think they said he was tired from traveling and everything else. And everybody's like, okay, that's,
Sure, of
he's
course.
a human,
As
things
you do.
happen. Today, it would be like blood in the water. God. But the other thing was, one time he told a story to an audience of Japanese speakers, and he had a translator, and he told this like long, humorous kind of anecdote. And then the Japanese translator very quickly and concisely translated it, like in 1 or 2 sentences, and the whole audience just fucking dies laughing. And the story goes that later backstage, the president asked the translator, said, how did you tell that story? Because you told it much more efficiently than I did, and everybody loved it. And the translator said, oh, I simply said, the president has told a humorous story. You should all laugh now. Which is perfect. But
Well, just wait till ChatGPT's doing that for us.
exactly. And it gets the information across, right?
Right.
It gets the information across. I'm sure it wasn't the translator's like, this is not going to play with it. So let me help you out here, bud. But it was great. The thing that most, we're talking a lot about this, but the thing that most shocked me was a demonstration. My background is in programming. My degree is in computer science. There was a point in time where they just took a printout of a program that somebody had written and they fed it to ChatGPT and they said, hey, I'm having problems with this code. That's it. That was the only prompt. Can you help me with it? Immediately, as soon as they fed her the code, she goes, okay, well, this looks like a program where the users are going to be inputting different variables. And if they put in a variable in this range, then we're going to give this prompt. Okay, yeah, okay. Here's your problem. Here you've got this, and this is going to return this. And everything. I was like, what the fuck is this? It was one of those moments where, like you said, drawing out the line where I was like, 25 different projects that I'm currently working on right now just got a lot easier. Like for our website and for the information systems we use for this podcast, I was like, holy cow. That's going to make my life a lot easier.
I wonder if it's going to be a net positive for programmers or like if it's going to just cause them all kinds of problems. Like on the one hand, if you have a problem with your code, you just go, why isn't this working? And they'll go, that right there.
I think it'll make the position obsolete. I think we're going to deal with that across the board where so many things are going to become obsolete. Like, for instance, why would you need to hire a translator, to translate for you if you have a device that can do it for you? It's also kind of strange because Universal Translator should be a thing that we've had. We have all the technology necessary for this right now. I don't know why it hasn't existed to this point in time. And maybe it is just the interface hasn't been smooth enough to get past that uncanny valley for the Bronx tourist and the Japanese tourist. And that's the only hurdle that we needed to cross, And we might not be there, but damn, after yesterday, I feel like we're a step closer.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Some other things going on while we're talking about the media stuff and, talking about the president's getting torn apart in the media. There's another thing going on where Bumble keeps showing up in my algorithm.
We talked about
Bumble
them yesterday.
Yeah. This feels like follow-up Friday. Told you so Tuesday is what it is. But this one was now, there's a big protest that's going on around Bumble because...
Is it big?
And this is me fully putting on my conspiracy theory hat, which I guess is a tinfoil hat. And I wonder... what is when something ends up in the media cycle again and again, it can't just be all algorithm. And I found out while looking at all these articles that are coming out about Bumble. Bumble, guess what, Ash? They're going through a rebrand. They're rebranding the company.
Why they're talking
and
so much?
Suddenly there's all these articles about Bumble out there. What a coincidence. There's even these negative articles about it. And it makes me wonder, is there now a protest against Bumble because there's all these rebranding events taking place that can create a protest? Or it makes me, the conspiracy part of me thinks is someone floating a negative story because it knows it gets more clicks and more views and it gets people talking about it. Let me read you this story about Bumble right now, and you tell me if this sounds like an actual controversy.
Go ahead. Okay.
Okay. Bumble, this is from an article on Forbes by Ariana Johnson. Okay. Bumble, after deleting all of its old posts on Instagram, Bumble tested a rebrand on its social media platforms, which launched on April 30th by saying dating needs a wake-up call and featuring historic images of women exhausted from the dating scene. However, pictures of some of Bumble's new billboards went viral. on social media due to their suggestion that celibacy isn't the answer to dating. The ads, which feature images of women, including messages like, "Thou shalt not give up on dating and become a nun," and "You know full well a vow of celibacy is not the answer." A Sunday Instagram post from Bumble celebrating Mother's Day was flooded with comments from users encouraging women to stay celibate, while others declared they will delete their Bumble accounts. Some social media users feel like Bumble's new anti-celibacy campaign is, quote, counterintuitive to its origin story, which was an app where women set the tone and can find romantic relationships. I think that's interesting to me because if you were in a boardroom and you were trying to figure out, okay, we're going to have a protest against this, what's the one group of people that we could piss off that wouldn't affect our customer base? And I would think a dating app would be
People who don't want to date?
People who are celibate specifically. Like if the celibate people don't come on your dating app, who's going to not download the app in the future because of that protest?
Like, I don't know. I heard
Is this cynical of me?
I heard that the celibate people don't want this one.
Yeah.
Better steer clear.
What I think is interesting about this, we're going deeper in the
All
conspiracy.
right,
Get out
all
the
right,
red
here we
yarn.
go.
Here we go. Is that Bumble did make a fundamental rebranding change where they changed what their app was known for, which was that after the swipe and match portion of it, then the first communication always has to come from the female. I'm not sure how they handle it with same-sex relationships, but the male can't make the first move in terms of talking.
Right.
The woman
So
has to do it.
after they match, she reaches out to him if she's interested, right?
This is kind of a funny aside. This is later in the article. It said the point of this was to feel more polite and walled off than other dating apps like Tinder, which is famously known for its hookup culture. However, as part of Bumble's rebrand, the company launched the, quote, opening moves feature in April, which lets women put questions on their dating profiles, allowing men to send the first message after a match. The CEO told the New York Times that the new feature was introduced after receiving feedback from women who felt like sending the first message was a burden.
Okay, well, that's actually quite funny.
Join the club, ladies. Welcome to the party, pal. But but that to me is like when you're doing a rebrand for a platform, when you change something that's core to the platform, man, is it better to have other stories out there like AI concierges that we talked about yesterday that are these wild things that might not even come to pass, or protests by celibate people against a dating app. You would definitely want people talking about that more than the fundamental way that you're changing your platform.
It does.
Would you agree with me on that?
I would agree with you that it seems like I wouldn't be surprised. We don't know for sure that this is intentional, but I wouldn't
It's
be
suspect.
surprised.
You're on watch, Bumble. Got our eye on you. What's going on over there? I see what you're doing in those boardrooms, floating these stories, playing our heartstrings. All right, I'll still download your app and won't tell Ash. I know it sounds cynical, but I can't help but make those connections. I just can't help but do it.
Right, that they're trying to decide what the negative discussion is and to drive it themselves rather than leave it to chance.
And is it because they're making so many changes that inevitably change causes a lot of kerfuffles? Or are some of these kerfuffles like part of the marketing?
Right.
One has to wonder. Because I have to say, celibate people protesting a dating app is like, that's low damage.
It almost sounds like The Onion.
It does a little bit, doesn't it? It does a little bit. It'd be like if Xbox was like, hey, we shut down a bunch of studios and also God of War fans, you suck. You know, everyone's gonna talk about them making fun of God of War fans, and they're not gonna talk about them shutting down studios.
Right.
But pissing off God of War fans doesn't affect Xbox in any way whatsoever.
Right.
All right, what else is going on in the world? Anything else interesting?
Those are the big things for me today. I mean, OpenAI revolutionizing AI, the meme stocks going wild again, Bumble changing our lives, or at least their platform.
Can I end on a little bit of a crazy note? We're talking about the uncanny valley and how that's getting smaller and smaller. One of the coolest things I ever read online was someone talking about the phenomenon that we all have, humans have, of the uncanny valley, whereas something is like a robot, it doesn't skeeve us out because it looks like a robot. But the closer it looks like an android with skin on it, looks more and more like a human, the more repulsive it becomes because it gets close to humans but not quite there. And that's more repulsive than something remarkably different. And what they pointed out was if we all evolve that skill, that means at one point in our history, there was an important defense mechanism that we had to have where we had to identify things that looked like humans but were not humans. I find that to be one of the creepiest but coolest observations I've ever heard.
Thanks for that, Bernie. It's Tuesday, everybody.
And I know there's stuff like Neanderthals and things like that. I just think it's interesting that as we're taking these next steps in evolution, the things that we had in the past of things that were like us but not, those are becoming important to us once again. All these hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years.
So have a great Tuesday, everybody.
Have a great Tuesday, everybody.
Before we go, I'd like to thank today's sponsors, Spieg89 and Sam B. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of Morning Somewhere.
And that does it for us. May 14th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you'll be here as well.
Bye, everybody.